kids make noise. I got really good at hitting mute on my mic, covering my mouth, and yelling at my kids to get off the couch or whatever it was. Because I actually did it once during this podcast. If you rewind it, like
I didn't even notice.
right, you don't even notice, because for me, like, I do have to parent and I do have to be fully present here, and it's not going to be perfect conditions, just like it's never a perfect condition to start entrepreneurship.
We immediately click. I guess entrepreneurs recognize entrepreneurs, or engineers recognize as engineers. Where did you start it? What is your origin story?
So I ran a red light. I was driving a 1994 Honda Accord, and I smashed into another car. I T-boned it. Like, my life felt over in that moment because I had spent everything I had in high school to buy it. So I worked as like a painter on the side, racked up some cash, bought a new front end from a junkyard, and just started tearing apart broken pieces of metal. And eventually I was able to figure out how to weld the frame back on and reassemble it. And I found that whole like restorative aspect of design really beautiful. I was advancing robotic surgery, so I worked as a design engineer, robotics controls engineer, systems engineer, and then I directed front-end innovation from Japan. So my family relocated 12 times in 1 year to get to Japan, and we said yes to an adventure that spiraled into so many different pathways of pain and confusion and joy that we never could have imagined.
And it's really interesting for me because my sort of arc is exactly the other way around. I started from the startup and then got into the big company, big corporations, and so I want to see how you sort of moved and navigated through that.
Johnson & Johnson's a monster. And you're normally, when you come into Johnson & Johnson as an engineer, you're kind of presented with these two tracks, which I'm all about busting tracks. And I was always told as I progressed technically, there's no job for you in Japan. Like, there's no engineering marketing hybrid role where you can go to Japan and be effective. He handed me the paper and he's like, you could say no to this opportunity once. Like, J&J will never give you this piece of paper again, because he just recognized how strange, like, it was a unicorn job, right? To be able to like go out and do this.
The more you talk, the more it looks like a fractal. So I discover a hard mode above the hard mode above the hard mode. And
so we took a lot of risks to exit. We had no medical, we had no pay, we had a huge debt we pulled to make it work. And we failed, and we hit zero in Japan, and my wife saved us. But during that time, I learned a lot just about who I am as a father and an entrepreneur and what I want to build towards. I also learned what I'm capable of as a leader and a storyteller.
You are publishing, I would say, is it 2 or 3 videos a week? I have a feeling it's around that.
Put out 20 a week, Riley. Because they haven't done that much content. You look at their channels, they've done 5 videos. They're still figuring out, how do I talk to this camera instead of how do I talk to the person? And a lot of them still don't fully know who they are, like the essence of who they are and how they communicate it. There is often this tension you will feel at some point in your journey that you won't get to be enough in a work or an entrepreneurial context because kids are somehow a limiting factor, which I wholeheartedly reject. I had a colleague who was doing a robotics controls discussion. His kid came out, and without losing a beat, picked him up, set him on his knee, introduced him, and then just started talking about software. Like, no hesitation, no wasted time on apology, just confidence. And Gorski did a company update where he wanted to highlight like 3 people that are really doing work remote well. And he read my blog to all 130,000 people of the company and saying, like, Joe's absolutely right about this. Like,
Joe wrote a whole YAML post about being inclusive and ways that we're connecting, and I think he's absolutely spot on. The more authentic, the more real you are, the better you're going to connect with people in life or even on the screen.
Last question I have for you is, I would like you to complete the following sentence. Life is too short.
Life is too short to live.
Okay, let's do that. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for doing this exercise. And for the people who don't know, Joseph is playing in hard mode, and we are going to discover why in a couple of seconds. But the first thing I like to ask any guest on a podcast is who you are, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so my name's Joey Sasaki. Online, I'm the Pretentious Engineer, so I answer some of the internet's most challenging questions around engineering, science, entrepreneurship, global leadership, and more. But I've been a global MedTech entrepreneur for about a decade. Recently had a strategic exit from Johnson & Johnson, but prior to that, I was advancing robotic surgery. So I worked as a design engineer, robotics controls engineer, systems engineer, and then I directed front-end innovation from Japan. So my family relocated 12 times in 1 year to get to Japan so that I could travel the region, immerse in surgery, and find new insights or unmet needs in the market, and then bridge commercial needs with upstream R&D. So I led an ecosystem of engineers to progress new technology in the AR and VR spaces. But on top of that, I'm a father of 4. My kids are 8. Shoot, one just turned 6 yesterday or a couple days ago. 3, and I have a 1-year-old in about 5 days or so. So nice tight spread, and global citizens. Now we live in Chicago. So that's the speed run of the world of Joe.
Brilliant. So now I hope the audience understands what I meant when I said Joseph is playing hard mode.
Definitely. Yeah,
That's
and I've
crazy.
done
So
in parallel.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. No, sorry. Yeah, and in parallel to
No,
that,
no,
I've
go
done
ahead. Go ahead.
content creation. So I've done content creation for about 5 years. In addition to that, so I've done 1,900 pieces of short form content. I'm getting into podcasting. So this is the first time being a guest on a podcast, which is great. Normally, I just monologue while I run. And then I've had around 20 million views, and I've built a community of 40,000 folks there. So it's been fun kind of living in dual contexts between leadership and content creation and storytelling. Yes, hard mode. I'll leave pauses for you.
Yeah, thank you. Hardcore mode. And so the sort of behind the scenes of how we were able to create, I mean, to have this podcast today is because we met each other on a very particular platform called SKOOL, the SKOOL Games. And we immediately click. I guess
Yeah.
entrepreneurs recognize entrepreneurs or engineers recognize as engineers. And I thought when I sort of discovered the headline of your story, I thought I want to have a conversation with this guy. He does a lot of amazing things, and this hardcore mode is very inspiring. And so it's also a way for us to sort of present this community that the of the SKOOL Games, and talk a little bit about all of that.
Yeah, no, it's been really great just getting to connect and get to know you. I mean, like you're in my pocket of global engineering-esque entrepreneurial citizens. Like go, your whole arc through Canada or through France into Canada is just amazing. And just the businesses you've been able to build and how you reset. Like I hit 0 recently in Japan and did a whole transition to Chicago to restart. We're getting close to 0 again as we restart our entrepreneurial ventures. And I have an interview today for like a full-time global leadership job. So it's cool crossing paths with people that are progressing in the entrepreneurial and business spaces. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And so the first question now I have for you is, um, where did you start it? What is your, I like to say, what is your origin story?
So my origin story, 1 second, Kitty, I'm on the call. My origin story is a little bit complex. So I actually totaled my car in high school. So I ran a red light. I was driving a 1994 Honda Accord, and I smashed into another car. I T-boned it. I thought my life was ruined, and I ended up calling my mom because geographically she was closer to me than the police, and the driver I thought was going to come out and kill me. So it's kind of like my life felt over in that moment because I had spent everything I had in high school to buy it. And I had a friend from church who
Mm.
allowed me to park my car at his garage, and he gave me a welder and said, good luck. So I worked as like a painter on the side, racked up some cash, bought a new front end from a junkyard, and just started tearing apart broken pieces of metal. And eventually I was able to figure out how to weld the frame back on and reassemble it. And the radiator in a 1994 Honda Accord is like super tight. And it took me about 13 different attempts to actually get all the pieces to integrate. And I hated it. Like it was just a trial from hell trying to put it together. I knew nothing about cars. I had no working knowledge of it. But I had this epiphany that someone doesn't wake up one day and decide to make a radiator for a 1994 Honda Accord. They look at all these different design constraints. They work with other people's subsystems. They look at what was done years prior and figure out how to integrate or like innovate on that. And I found that whole like restorative aspect of design really beautiful. And that's what actually gave me a pivot from being interested in bridges with civil engineering into mechanical engineering. Like that's the origin of like restoring is what I like to do. That's why I enjoy the craft.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So what happened next? How did you get into this J&J position and career?
Yeah, it's a wonder that I ended up in J&J. So I went to the University of Illinois. I studied mechanical engineering, and they're heavily recruited by automotive as well as like Caterpillar. So I thought I'd end up working on big, large vehicles just based on that origin story. And I ended up having kind of a strange schedule where I was dragging my college out to 4.5 years versus 5. So I had this gap. I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So I went to a career fair as a junior, not really looking to land a full-time job. I was just kind of walking around to get used to it. And there's Johnson & Johnson there. So I just went up to the Johnson & Johnson booth, and they had this big sign that said Ethicon. And Ethicon is one of the world's largest purveyors of minimally invasive surgical equipment. So they make sutures. If you have cancer and you need to get in and work on it and cut it out, that's like their wheelhouse. So I had a technical conversation with one of the recruiters for about an hour, just asking questions like, how do you seal tissue? How are you using staplers in someone's body? Like I knew nothing about surgery. I was just curious. It was like the worst elevator pitch that I could have imagined for a job. Like I didn't come up and just introduce myself and say, this is why I'm great and why I want to work here. I was like, I know what J&J is. What's Ethicon? And we just started nerding out for about an hour. And then I awkwardly was like, should I give you my resume? And it ended up opening this door to this co-oping experience where I took a semester off of college and was able to actually move out to Ohio. I was married with my wife at that time in college, so we went out together. And it really opened my horizons to MedTech innovation holistically. So that's kind of the pathway in.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
how was how was life during that sort of being an engineer at a big company?
Yeah, so Johnson & Johnson's huge. And I had no idea how large it really was. There's like 130,000 employees across 120 plus opcos. Originally, when I joined, they had 3 branches. So they had medical device, which is what I worked in, pharmaceuticals, and then consumer. So all the Johnson & Johnson most people know is like baby oil and baby powder, which there's a lot of litigation in that space, as well as like Band-Aids and things like that. And they recently cleaved off that part of the business, the consumer side. But the MedTech space was incredible. So as a co-op or an intern, I was working in our lifecycle organization, so products that had already been released in the field, and learning a lot about our quality process and how we do design improvements to protect patients. So we were navigating a lot of different recalls on some of our products. One such one is a surgical stapler. So basically, with laparoscopic surgery, if we talk about, can we take a surgical detour for like 2 minutes for context? Like if your grandma, yeah, thanks for working with the lag, Riley. If your grandma had like her gallbladder go out, which happened with my grandma in the 80s, they would have had to cut all the way across her abdomen. There's a lot of bleeding. It's very high risk if you're older, and people could actually die from those procedures. And with the invention of I can never say it, laparoscopy, it's the easier way for me to say it. They go in through very small ports, about 5 millimeters or so, depending, 5, 8, or 12, depending on the tool. And then you can insufflate, which means you actually seal all of those ports and apply pressure to open up the abdominal cavity. And then they'll come in with a camera so you can see inside the body with other tools around these cool sealed gaskets. And one of those tools is a stapler. So we actually have it's about that long and it fires a series of between like 40 and 100 something staples, depending on what you're actually cutting across. But it'll do 2 lines of staples on each side, and then it'll run a knife to both compress and transect. And we had a recall going on for various challenges with some of that design. So like all hands on deck trying to figure out what do we need to improve in order to get that back out to market. So for me, that was very eye-opening of how innovation in these spaces actually touches people, like that's someone's grandma. So if one of the challenges we had is there's a lockout mechanism. So it makes sure that there's no way to send that knife if there's not a cartridge in there that releases the staples. And there was a failure once upon a time where somehow there wasn't a cartridge in there and it just ran a knife and transected through someone's lung, and you could bleed out, and that's called an adverse event. So surgery has inherently very high risks. There's a lot of pressure to meet really grand challenges, but you're working in such a small space that there's huge constraints you have to navigate within. So there's always going to be trade-off, and sometimes that can cause a mechanism like the bailout lockout to fail. And then you have to put more safety mitigations into place. So I've always lived kind of at the convergence of the patient, risk management, and design, and kind of spanning all of that. That's where I started. I'll leave some space. Questions, thoughts?
Yeah, brilliant. Let us know in the comments down below if
Yeah.
you have any questions. If you want to know more about that sort of chapter in Joseph's life, so I want to know sort of how you transitioned from this position to the your entrepreneurial arc.
Yeah, you want to go with like the full send. All right, so I could run
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Because it's complicated.
And it's really interesting for me because my sort of arc is exactly the other way around. I started from the startup and then got into the big company, big corporations, and so I want to see how you sort of moved and navigated through that.
Yeah, I could work with that. So Johnson & Johnson's a monster. And you're normally, when you come into Johnson & Johnson as an engineer, you're kind of presented with these two tracks, which I'm all about busting tracks, but we're going to start with the career that was positioned in front of me and how I found something different towards eventual entrepreneurship. So you could either progress technically, which means like become a darn good engineer, get really good at it, maybe become lead design engineer, and then eventually like the pathway towards fellow and the wizards in the engineering space. And I was really good even as an intern, but even throughout my career of connecting with the wizards and the fellows and understanding what is the knowledge that is trapped within of people and not in procedure or documentation, how we make sure that we're transferring that. How am I gleaning everything this organization knows so that I can actually progress new solutions myself? So that's the technical path. The other path is the leadership path. And the traditional way to do it, at least at Ethicon before robotics happened and completely blew up our organization, is you would progress down the technical path, become a darn good engineer, then lead an engineering project as a project director through like a training process. And then from there, you'd maybe direct a franchise. So if you worked in like energy modalities, we have lots of cool energy tech that I've worked on. And then eventually like VP of R&D, and it just keeps climbing from there into the corporate side. And those are the two tracks. For me, I was always in a complex position because my leadership skill set and my ability to connect and solve problems through community did not allow me to necessarily demonstrate deep technical capabilities, even though I had a very strong technical base. So for instance, when I was working in like, we have a really cool algorithm for a technology called Harmonic. Harmonic is a vibrating blade. We oscillate at 50,000 cycles per second. It's amazing. It uses resonant waves. I did a TED talk about it a long time ago. And when you bring it in contact with tissue, the friction creates immense amounts of heat. All the water evaporates, the proteins cross-link, and it gets sticky. And this allows surgeons to cut and manipulate through tissue with really fine dissection, which is actually critical in Japan when we get out to the Japan side. And I was working on progressing like new AI algorithms to be able to sense when you had completed transection, because the way we had done it prior with neural networks was like suboptimal. This is well before like LMMs and all of that. But rather than just doing that myself, I worked with external innovation houses to kind of lay out a scope of work. This is our problem space. This is how we've done it in the past. This is how, like, the boundaries with which you can work, and these are the outcomes we need. And we're able to improve the accuracy of that predictive model very high, and then that's something that actually goes out into market. But because of that, that's technical leadership, but it didn't show me as like this technical engineer. So I hit a lot of like glass ceilings along the technical path because people didn't perceive me as technical, which was very strange. So I actually moved into robotics controls. So we were doing a joint venture. This is what's it called? Build to buy, the build to buy model in MedTech, if you're familiar with that. That's when you have a very large strategic, such as Johnson & Johnson, with deep pockets that wants to enter a new space, but because of the organizational constraints of such a large ship, it's difficult to turn it. So they have to work in a kind of a large venture capitalist model of farming startups to do things on their behalf. So J&J played in this space in an incredibly large way. So they actually shook hands with Alphabet through Google, and they started a company called Verb Surgical that was making a surgical robot. And then Ethicon, where I worked, was making all the instruments to go on the robot because we understood the clinical science, the customer side facing side of it. We're great at instrumentation for multiple decades. So it should be pretty simple, like make a good instrument, pop it on a robot, have the startup make the robot so that startup could move fast without, say, some of our challenges with our quality process and things that slow stuff down, and then kind of build it out over time. So J&J total now has invested at least 12 plus billion into the robotic space across 2 acquisitions, really 3 if you count a company called Velis. And we still haven't seen an ROI, which is why cash flow is very challenging. But in the early days, I was the 16th person in that joint venture ecosystem. So I was in the Ethicon side, but I was the one of 3 robotics controls engineers. Like I just taught myself how to do controls. And I was working with the PhD robotics controls engineers at Verb Surgical to bring these initial instruments to life. So that was another like lateral move where I wasn't perceived as technical enough by those PhD folks, but I was critical to the Ethicon folks to kind of bridge and be a good partner. And I think that's where I started to learn that I love like integrations that are messy across volatile landscapes and ambiguous problem spaces, because we're really like shaping fog. We had never made a robot before. We've made instruments before, but we didn't know how to take that huge leap forward and do it well clinically. And even though J&J is massive and has deep pockets and can burn tons of money, to build the capability internal or farm it through the startup ecosystem is tricky. So I liked all the messy, volatile spaces there. And then I moved laterally again into systems engineering. So Ethicon didn't have any systems engineering capabilities. But if you look at other more mature industries, such as automotive is a big example, where you're bringing all these little subsystems together to make a large system, right? Like the radiator in a 1994 Accord has to fit. In the systems engineering competency, like you normally start at the system, you cascade requirements, and then you design within those smaller pieces to make sure everything ladders up to what the user needs, what's economical. So I lived at the integration of all of Ethicon's hardware and all of Verb's software, and eventually Oris's software, which was another acquisition we brought into the house. So that eventually allowed me to work across all of Ethicon's handheld technologies, multiple robotics platforms. And I was also an incredibly strong communicator. And in parallel to that, I did missions work in Japan. So every summer I took a paid volunteer leave to go travel Japan. We helped small churches with like English conversation camps, cooking classes, sports ministries, things like that. So I was always getting out to Japan and always networking towards Japan. I'm a quarter Japanese. My last name's Isosaki. I studied Japanese in college. And me and my wife always had an openness to some kind of convergence of career and life there. And I was always told as I progressed technically, there's no job for you in Japan. Like there's no engineering, marketing hybrid role where you can go to Japan and be effective. But meanwhile, Japan was actively advocating for the needs of their network, like their country. So they would send regulatory partners to sit in the US to accelerate our regulatory submissions in Japan, because there's a lot of challenges there. They would send quality partners, they would send their marketers to embed on our teams. And yet it wasn't as reciprocal of sending engineers back and forth. So I was always a great connector. I had the language, the competency, the technology, and I got tapped on the shoulder to go and lead front-end innovation in Japan. So that's kind of the arc, is that the job was presented to me because a request came from Japanese commercial of, we really need a global leader to sit and bridge commercial and R&D. Do you know anyone who could do that? And even though I was young in my career, I was still a senior engineer. I was tapped on the shoulder because I had kind of that full set of capabilities. I was open to the region. So I had a lot of VPs on both sides kind of make it happen. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know
Yep.
at that stay at this particular moment, what was your family situation?
When I was, okay, this is so fun. When I was presented the opportunity, I was given a piece of paper, and we'll get to family, that had like front-end innovation lead. It showed the KPIs they're trying to accomplish. My boss handed it to me, and he had been vetting me for the role, and I didn't know about it because I was actively trying to also get a role in systems engineering in parallel. So it was like there's a lot of smoke screen because it wasn't real. And he handed me the paper, and he's like, "You could say no to this opportunity once. Like J&J will never give you this piece of paper again," because he just recognized how strange, like it was a unicorn job, right? To be able to like go out and do this. So I called up my wife, and we had 2 kids. We had talked about Japan for a while, but at that time, she wasn't even pregnant with our third yet. And I was like, Kevin basically said we could say no once. Is Japan going to happen or not? And we said yes to an adventure that spiraled into so many different pathways of pain and confusion and joy that we never could have imagined. Because this piece of paper was handed to me in February of 2020, and COVID hit March of 2020. And this started a series of 12 relocations to get out there. But yeah, at that time, yeah, like this is like the meat of the hard mode, right? Is we were given this vision of like, this is what you're going to do. Even when I had the interview for the role, I was told this isn't an interview. These senior leaders in Japan, which was the head of business development, head of sales, head of marketing, all sat down with me virtually through a global connect and just started like vetting that, yes, you are the fit. Like there were potentially other candidates, but they all got weeded out during COVID. So I just started doing the job remote as COVID hit. And I was told we'd be relocating in 2 months. And it ended up being 12 moves over the course of 1 year to get to Japan to actually do the work, even though we started it remote. But yeah, our family situation evolved immensely, if you want me to go into those pieces as well.
If you want to talk about it, if you
Yeah.
don't, that's perfectly fine. And I
Yeah.
think we
No,
can
it's fun.
also save a couple of details for maybe another episode or another format.
Yeah.
I don't want you to sort of give away everything at once if you want to save a little bit. Um, and but if you do, yeah, feel free to continue. Otherwise, I would like to sort of fast forward
Mhm.
into you exiting the boat, the corporate world boat, and creating your entrepreneurial path, sorry, and creating that SKOOL community and everything
Yeah.
around it, the ecosystem.
Yeah. No, I could run through all of that. Um, I will touch on the 12 moves speed run, but like less than a minute, just because I think it provides context to the
Definitely a video
exit. Like
game
that's
reference. I like
where
it.
the why for the exit came from. Yeah. So like I was offered the job got killed because of COVID. And then I was reoffered in April 22. So about a year later, which gave me a great opportunity to do systems engineering for a year at another company's integration. So very thankful that COVID killed the job, because I was able to move into it when it did start with a more systemic approach with just more rigor to what I wanted to build at scale. And then when I was reoffered the job, we were told we were going to be moving quickly because they thought Japan would open for the Olympics, which was a false assumption. So we sold our house, everything got packed out into boxes, and they basically like put it in a shipping container across the sea. And we ended up moving into a furnished apartment, and Japan never really opened up as planned. So that apartment had a bed bug infestation. So we moved into a hotel, lived in Chicago with family, back into a hotel, back into the unit after multiple rounds of extermination. At this point, we had 3 kids when I was reoffered the job. So my third child was raised like Harry Potter in a closet because we only had a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids. And then we were finally given the green light that we could actually immigrate to Japan. So we moved out of that apartment. We went to Chicago to see family for Thanksgiving. And 2 days before we got on our flight, they closed the borders for Omicron. So we were displaced again. So we lived with family in a hotel, in a furnished apartment for another 4 months. This disrupts all schooling for the kids, right? And then we finally got access to relocate out in March of 2022. I think I got my dates right. 23. I forgot. It's 2025 now. It's messy. Like it's super messy. But the reason I share is we went on such a crazy journey in order to progress innovation from Japan. And when I was in Chicago, we lived 20 minutes from our family. This is right now I'm in my family's basement, actually, is how we got to Chicago. But we were always driving past the big players in MedTech in Chicago, like AbbVie, Abbott, Baxter. And I was like, man, it is really hard to stay faithful to this whole Japan J&J thing, because this is too much. Like there's so many lines of like, this is too much. And we finally got out to Japan, and it was incredible. We had our 4th child in Japan, and a couple, like 2 or 3 months before we had our 4th child, I was given the news that the assignment was going to be ending as scheduled, but it felt early just based on the lead times of what we had progressed over 2 years in country. And I actively tried to do anything I could to provide stability to my family in the region. I applied to over 20 roles within J&J. I talked to multiple company group chairmen, VPs, presidents. I demonstrated what I had been able to deliver on behalf of clinicians, the teams I was able to direct globally. But because of all these lateral moves I had taken, there was still a lot of level issues that had occurred. Like I was still an engineer on paper, even though I was directing 32 people across a global context to progress innovation. So from some stance, I wasn't promotable within the organization. And there was one role for business development that was incredibly promising. So it'd be over Japan as part of the APAC BD team looking at acquisitions, leveraging all the technical experience I had within J&J. I could figure out what fits within portfolio and what to progress in their startup kind of venture fund kind of thing. And I did what was called a contingent resignation, which I talk about in my SKOOL community. That'll be the hook to SKOOL, where basically based on timing, America needed to wipe their hands clean of my headcount. So they're saying you could relocate back to the US to New Jersey, which was a completely different city than where we were from. We had no support network, or we had just had a baby in Tokyo and we had a team and a support network. So I was like, well, we're going to hope that we get this BD job. And if I don't get it, I'll exit because I've lost all the relocation support, all the expat support. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I didn't land it. So I went all in on entrepreneurship in the Tokyo scene. And that's the full restart. And my baby's crying, so give me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So in the meantime, I'm gonna send a message to you, audience. Wow, looking at this live cast right now. Like I said, it's a live cast, so things happen like this. So let us know in the comments down below if you are enjoying what's happening. If you have any questions or comments, things you want to share with Joseph, and
Yep.
I'll make sure I pass those questions to you. So as I said, this is a live cast, and that's the perfect proof of it.
This is literally like fatherhood and entrepreneurship. So yeah, in my exit,
Yeah,
we'll see
yeah.
if I can calm him down. He's grumpy, but like this is the best. Seriously, it was one of the
This is
most
gonna go
powerful
viral.
decisions I ever made to quit J&J.
Okay.
It's one of the hardest choices we made, and we quit with so many assumptions, fears, and plans, and certain things just didn't converge the way we expected. So the yen was super weak in Japan. So in many ways, like getting hired in, it was a huge pay cut because I was being paid as USD, and all of our liabilities for like student debt and stuff were USD. Kids housing or kids schooling international is around 17K per kid, and we had 3. So in the exit, we pulled a 75K personal loan to cover their education and give us a 6-month ramp to do entrepreneurship. We had to go all in entrepreneurship because it was the only way to get high leverage on our time. And at that time, I had a lot of plans on how I could launch a community on SKOOL to help engineers find their way. So I wrote a whole bunch of copy and kind of figured out what the vision of this community would be, the courses I would do. But the ramp up, it just takes time to build community, and there's a lot of challenges with the model I originally went after. In parallel to that, we did high ticket brand management, and we had a lead that we worked very hard to join. Hey, Dylan! Oh, Dylan's a good friend. That's awesome. Dylan was like core support for me in Japan. So we took a lot of risks to exit. We had no medical, we had no pay, we had a huge debt we pulled to make it work, and we failed and we hit zero in Japan. And my wife saved us. Like we ended up pulling our kids out of school and was able to leverage some of that reimbursement to buy like a 20K shipping container and get everything to Chicago and reset. But during that time, I learned a lot just about who I am as a father and an entrepreneur and what I want to build towards. I also learned what I'm capable of as a leader and a storyteller. So it gives me kind of this great reset where I can land a full-time job, get health and benefits, and hopefully progress MedTech. And then in parallel to that, build a community that works well. We're like up to 60 members, which is pretty sweet so far. And I'm a dad. Yeah. That's all the pieces.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a clear idea that you were playing in hard mode, but the more you talk, the more it looks like a fractal. So I discover a hard mode above the hard mode above the hard mode, and it's just really impressive. How
Yeah.
how did you find that energy just to keep going, especially when you were at the hardest point of this journey?
I mean, first of all, pinpointing the hardest point of the journey is very hard
Mm.
Everything leading up to the decision of exit was hard. I mean, we changed our mind 50 plus times. Jobs seemed promising, jobs evaporated. J&J was navigating a lot of organizational restriction. And
Mm.
me and Felicia's my wife, we kind of landed on 5 whys for why we think we're going to leave. And our whys were slightly different. Stability for the kids was a big one, even though when I replay our history, we actually created more instability by not just moving to New Jersey, particularly from like the finance side of things. But at the time, we wanted continuity of our friendships. We wanted to keep our kids in school. That was the whole reason we were staying. And for me, I was looking for an immediate transition from J&J, just based on all the lateral move with like inequitable payroll and compensation. But I also just wanted to believe that I could actually build something that was of value in a different context. Like after serving in one context for so long, I could do something really cool in another one. And I didn't know what that was. So we had to kind of venture out and get it. But it is so paralyzing when you're doing work that you can't immediately see the fruit from. Because like in a corporate job, someone's over your shoulder, a manager, middle line of like, we need to see results by this date in order to get this thing out the door. Like there's always pressure that cascades multiple levels that drives you into a box of what you should or shouldn't do and by when. When you're in entrepreneurship, you have to figure out what's most critical. Like a lot of things I thought mattered or that I should progress, like I closed off a lot of those paths and pivoted to another thing and pivoted to another thing, and then figured out what do I actually want to lock on and build towards. Like there's a lot of pivot, and then stay. And we had this mindset that if we didn't keep moving forward, we'd get run over by logistics, finance, deported, right? Like we needed to find legal standing for being in Japan, because as soon as we left J&J has to send a letter to the Japanese government of like, we're not employing him and he's still in your country. So we needed to figure that out. But we found that financial risks were even higher than legal residency risks. So you're always navigating kind of risk-based pivots as you progress. So I worked harder than I ever did in J&J as an entrepreneur and made less than I ever did. But I think where I'm at now, where my community is moving, like I've built a really steady free community that I have a lead from all my content creation into. People are starting to get results, and it's going from there. Go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, well, that's the natural transition. I want to know
Yeah.
more. I want you to talk more about what is this community that you're building, why you build it, where do you want to take it, etc. So perfect transition. Just give a
Yeah.
little bit of context for people who have no idea what this community is.
Yeah. So in Tokyo, I consulted startups, and I realized that a lot of founders really struggle with something called like the innovation trifecta. Like they struggle with understanding an unmet need, technical feasibility, and commercial viability, as well as like branding. Like that magic triangle inside a circle of brand is an enigma to many founders, especially if they come from an engineering or technical foundation. And what I'd realized, like over the arc of my career in J&J corporate, and then moving into starting my own business and like having to teach myself how to do sales, even though I'd seen sales happening with surgeons as I was traveling the region, like I saw the best sales reps in Tokyo. Like I know how to do it. Doing it for yourself in your own context is really tricky. And I've been able to span from engineering into global leadership, into building businesses through entrepreneurship. And I realized that my ideal customer avatar is someone who's actually progressing through that continuum. Normally, you want to lock in on like, I'm going to make a community for engineers, or I'm going to make a community just for school community owners. And you want to be very niche and very specific. And while I agree with that in many cases, I wanted to create a space where you could see people at different points on that continuum and glean from one another and push each other forward and find your next. And that outcome is very ambiguous because the pathway I've found in some ways is ambiguous. Life isn't as clear cut as it's prescribed to us. It's not just technical or leadership, but if you keep venturing forward and building your technical capability, your leadership capability, and your business acumen, there's so many different spaces you can move and play in. So I wanted to create a community that's focused on helping engineers find their way so that they can secure their next best opportunity. And it starts with teaching people how to say goodbye or quit their job. So like the main course I have, which is free in the free community, is it came from an insight from one of my best mentors. He was a old timer at J&J. He's got like 100 plus patents, just a wizard. He's worked across like acquisitions and stuff. And when I called him to say, hey, I'm going to quit, like this is the decision we've made and this is the why and what we think is going to work out, he told me like, your tolerance of risk is beyond anything I can imagine. Like for him, he got impacted by a layoff and got rehired into the same company just to keep all of his stock options and stability for his kids. Like he couldn't fathom our ability to leave and navigate the what happens next. And he ended with this encouragement though, of like, I'm really excited to see your TED Talk where you talked about what your plans were and how you failed again, failed again, and then became an overnight success. Like he was excited for that story. And after getting that feedback, I figured out like I have to figure out how to tell this story in motion. Like I need to capture, how did I get to the point where I was able to leave the comfort of a corporate job, and where are people stuck in that continuum so that they could either move to another corporate job that's fulfilling or venture out into the business continuum. So that's kind of what I'm trying to craft on SKOOL, is you have to help people quit to figure out what to move towards next, because everyone's stuck. I'll pause with that.
Yeah. I've seen that a lot, even with my friends. There's a huge sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
It's that, for people who don't know what that is, it's this sort of biased where you're at the casino and you're losing and losing and losing and losing, but in your head you think if you stop, you'll never get a chance to get that money back. So you keep on betting
Yeah.
again, hoping that you'll get a win that will sort of reimburse everything. But in reality, you just keep on losing, and you'd be better just stopping here, taking your loss and moving on. And this happened a lot in the business world, where you don't want to close a door because you think somehow something will happen and compensate. Yeah, it's really common. It's really hard to fight. So I definitely understand that.
Yeah, sorry for cutting in with latency.
No, that was
the
great. Go ahead.
the second class in, because I have 9 modules, the second module is called The Frog in the Pot, and it addresses the sunk cost fallacy just in kind of a different idea. It's this I don't know if it transfers into French. I don't know how you'd say it in French, but there's this idea that like if you put a frog in a pot and turn up the heat because it's a cold-blooded animal, like it can't perceive the change in temperature. Go ahead.
So French are worldwidely known for eating frogs, and so we definitely have this exact same metaphor.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. I have had frog legs before. I didn't think about it that way. But yeah, so the expression, at least, is this idea that a frog can't perceive temperature. So it stays in the pot and it gets cooked. And within our careers, there will often be toxic aspects of our job that cause us, that we like endure over time. There's 2 main things that people get stuck in, and I'll talk to them. One's golden handcuffs. That'll be part 2. Part 1's just weathering the pot, where everything's shifting, where you're seeing your friends getting laid off, your promotions are being dangled that you're never given, and things continue to get more and more uncomfortable at your current level and your current role. But for some reason, you become what I call like a consenting frog to the pot. Like you haven't jumped, and it's not the right fit for you. You know that you're not progressing, but there's something that keeps you from being able to actually break through all that inertia and pivot, have impact, and shift out of that pot. So like that's the second module in my course, is just teaching individuals to recognize, like, let's name all these factors that you're feeling that you haven't been able to name. And then do you still consent to be in the pot or not? Because this is what your life actually looks like. You just haven't been able to process it and make that choice. The golden handcuffs are they're not malicious, but they're intentionally crafted retention tactics within corporate, particularly corporate America, but anywhere in general. We normally think about these as good things: a steady paycheck every week, medical benefits, but then it goes like stock options, and it just keeps climbing. For me, I got like different
401k.
stock options. Yeah, right. Like anything you can do to keep people. But for me, I was given a whole bunch of stock options for a few good years, and they were set up where like you have the option to execute the stock and get like the difference in how much it's grown. And that looked very promising from where J&J was, but we're at a COVID bubble. And I was hoping that I'd be able to pull those when I exited. They retained me for 4 years, but J&J stock dipped below where it was. So when I was exiting J&J, what had retained me was worth absolutely nothing. And that doesn't always happen. That's an exception. But for me, that was like, I had to realize like that was just painted in gold. It wasn't real in my case. And what they didn't do is they didn't promote me and increase my base comp and level me correctly. They gave me something to retain me where I was at, and then they didn't have to pay anything out for it. So a lot of these retention factors keep people stuck, either because there's the good shiny things, or there's just a lack of willingness to break out of the pot. And people don't really discern when it's time to either look external or stay where they're at. Because I still think you also go through hard seasons in your career where you should like find grit and stay. I don't think everyone, this is a toxic comment that people won't like. I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur. I don't think everyone can be an entrepreneur. I get a nod. Like, it's incredibly high risk. And what my family's had to navigate in the failure is massive. But there are things you can do to burn down that risk and make it a more accessible progression. So I didn't want to create a community where it's like, you'll be able to quit your job and then you're making 10,000 a month doing something magic. Like, sure, drop shipping can work for some people. I've seen that shit. But like, folks have to work. And like, if we want to advance global healing, people have to be doing cool tech. But there will come a point where you do need to find a different role or a different opportunity within a different context. And I want to help push people towards that, because I think that's much more attainable and real in the world we live in. And then some people could be the outlier unicorn founders, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. I love your not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Too many people hear the sentence anyone can become an entrepreneur. And they hear that, but they understand everyone, but anyone is not everyone. So that's where the trap is. And the other thing is, and I think we lived a black swan event with the pandemic, where a lot of people, and especially engineers, got a mental model shattered. And the mental model is big tech are a sort of safe haven. Like for decades, big tech were praising on that idea of, we are big companies, but we human first. We are the best place where you'll grow your career and grow personally, etc. Which was the case. I mean, in a lot of situation, it was the case. But unfortunately, during this Black Swan event, we all witnessed this massive wave of layoffs, and it broke something in a lot of people's mind, where they sort of started to understand, okay, so these kind of companies are not safe anymore, where they were the pinnacle of safety compared to the other corporations. And something like a seed was planted in people's mind at that point that sort of made them think, okay, maybe I should create a different path. And this is when entrepreneurship came. But as you said, I think they were drawn by the wrong mermaids, if I sort of use the
the sirens
metaphor. The sirens, exactly, sirens. And the problem with entrepreneurship is, especially because of social media brought a lot of good things, but they brought us really terrible things, which is social media thrives on broadcasting the good news only. And a lot of people only saw the world of entrepreneurship through the lens of fast, quick money, digital nomad life, and these kind of things. And as you mentioned, very few people pictured the hard work you need to put in. So yeah, I just fully agree with what you're saying, and that's why I think your community and your sort of service that you're providing is really, really, really interesting and really powerful for whoever may be interesting. But now I want to know, why did you pick this platform called the School Games?
Yep. So why did I pick SKOOL? Okay, I'm tracking with you. Sorry for the delay. And sorry for the cocoa melon in the background if you can hear my kid playing with a toy.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm good. So Why did I pick SKOOL? Because I fell for quick and fast. Like Hord Mosey is a great salesperson. No, it's a little bit sarcastic, but I do think I saw people genuinely making income, and I recognize this is still, any platform is a pyramid scheme when you try to break into it. Like, to get to a point where you can get traction and a following that's monetizable, it's difficult. Like, I hit monetization on YouTube. I make $2 per video. Like, I can't quit my job off of YouTube, but I recognize that that's an asset to be able to communicate with a wider audience. And what if we drove that audience to a community? I tried to push them straight to a paid version. And then that's too big of a jump, because you're expecting people to trust you, be willing to pay you, believe that they can get value from you, and be able to figure out this context called SKOOL and love it. And the reality is that's too many assumptions for most people to immediately jump through, unless you're doing like really hard sales. And that wasn't the culture I wanted to create, to actually move people up like their LTV. So I joined initially because it was glittery, and I felt like this could be a model that could provide passive revenue. And the more I've learned on the platform, I'm part of Calvin Hollywood's community leadership group, around retention and engagement. Like, it's a lot of work to actually curate a community that's vibrant and alive and profitable, and learning how to write copy and create courses and answer DMs and reach out and explain it and repeat the same thing multiple times with multiple people, unless you create digital assets. Like, all of that's a lot of work. And I'm thankful that I did go all in on it and build towards it. I just didn't understand the lead times to get it off the ground. So that's where my family navigated like a journey of pain, as we just completed like our 15th move to get to Chicago across all those continuums, because we had to move when we left J&J. We had to move to get to America. All our stuff arrived, and we're with the in-laws until the business takes off. Like, I have like my whole year's laid out behind me with when different parts of my community launch and paid, and it all builds off of free. But I wanted to make sure the free community is exceptional. So like, the why to get here was it was shiny. But the longer I've been here, I have a sense of like ikigai, or a sense of just deep purpose, and understanding someone's origin story, where they're at, what's limiting thoughts or boundaries exist that are keeping them from kind of punching through to a new level, to say, I could actually move from automotive into MedTech, or I could move from an engineer and lead a team, or I could start a business and moonlight it safely while I still have health benefits for my kids. Like, those are the problems that I really like to come alongside people and help them figure that out, and figuring out how to do that in a way that's like economical, scalable. That's been fun to build business models around. So I haven't fully figured it out, but I'm close. So I have Waitlist for the paid stuff that'll be rolling out soon. And we'll see if I can make my first $1. I know you hit yours much faster than me. Just awesome.
I was in the trenches before that, but I'll make a full video explaining how I was able to get that done. But yeah, brilliant. And so I would like to know a little bit more of what is the service that you are providing, or you want to provide in the future, um, with this community, and then how can people reach out to you? How can get access to the community? How can they get access to the content and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So I have 3 layers. So we'll work in layers like a nice cake, right? The bottom layer is actually, technically it's inverted if I look at it from my world with a funnel, but we'll start from the ground up. We'll assume you saw a video on YouTube, you saw this podcast, and you're like, wow, that Joe guy seems kind of helpful. The first layer of engagement is called the Big Brain Club Lite. And I have a full 9 module course that will help you figure out what's blocking you from stepping towards your next, and then how do you land it, whether it's a job, or doing entrepreneurship. Like, you'll have greater clarity on whether you should stay where you're at or pivot towards something new. And you'll have a community around you that cares about getting the same results. So like, everyone will eventually have a posting in the community that says their origin story, their desired future state, their fears or blockers they're navigating, and then they can track progress over the course of weeks to months to years, because to build the life we desire takes time. And I think that should be accessible to anybody. So that's why it's free. Originally, I tried to pay for it. Oh, thank you. That's super cool. So yeah, you could jump into that. It's low friction. It's easy. It's fun. And you can learn. The classes drip each week. So it gives you at least 9 weeks of runway to learn something new. From there, I have Waitlist to join 2 paid communities. The first one is called a low ticket offering for other community managers out here. That's $100 a month. And that's going to be the Big Brain Club Pro, where I'm also going to have like weekly live calls with the community, and then have what's called the Big Brain Repository, where based on the needs of that community, I'll do additional courses or content around leadership, finding an international opportunity. I don't know if you hear the music in the background, it's cute. He's singing to it. It's awesome. You'll have opportunities to join to join those live calls and have a little bit more proximity to both me, but it'll give you a more committed group of people. And then the highest tier is $1,000 a month, and that's one-on-one with the Pretentious Engineer. So that's a perfect, like, completely personalized one-on-ones with you to figure out where you're at, where you're going, how we can get you the results you desire over whatever time frame makes sense to you. And I lock access to this. Yo, what's up, Nathan? So I lock access to these communities quarterly for the Big Brain Club Lite. So you could only get in 4 times per year. The first enrollment will be April 1st. And then for one-on-one with the Pretentious Engineer, that's semi-annual. So I'll only launch a cohort in July 1st and January 1st, because I want everyone to come together and navigate it as a collective journey, because I think it's tighter. So I make people wait, which is also really countercultural to school in general. But I think it's worth the wait because you have people that are all in on it. They're energized, and the engagement's much higher because they all like come together, built up and ready. So that's the model. And the results are whatever the person needs, which is the opposite of what you're supposed to sell in these platforms. But I really think everyone's next looks completely different. So I don't believe in a cookie cutter model. Everyone's in a different point in their career. I have people reaching out to me from a finance background, like, hey, can I join this? I'm not an engineer. Yeah, you can still learn how to quit your job and figure out how to lead a global team and how to be an entrepreneur. The pathways are winding. I think for people that are looking to carve their own course and learn how to live their own life, that's what I offer, because I've figured out how to do it after 10 years in J&J. Yeah, I'll pause.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yep.
So I'm sharing a little bit of some of your links, and so it's super clear. So you have this YouTube channel called the Pretentious Engineer, where you are you are publishing. I would say, is it 2 or 3 videos a week? I have a feeling it's around that.
Put out 20 a week, Riley. My
Long
volumes are
forms,
way
long form.
higher.
Long
It all matters, Riley. I do 14 shorts a week. I do 1
Yeah.
podcast a week, and then I do one to many. So what I mean by that is, if there's a member of our community that has a specific problem, like there's an individual, Mobeen from Turkey, was interested in, like, hey, how do I get to America? He's entrepreneurial, but does he go the academia route? Does he start a business in Turkey and then move there? I'll record like a 5 to 30 minute walkthrough for him, and I'll post that. So that gives me an extra 1 to 3 videos a week as I get momentum. And then I put out courses as well and host those on YouTube. My volumes are high.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was so funny because one of the first interactions that we had in school DMs, I asked you something and you replied to me with a loom, I think within the next 30 minutes, and it was like a 5 to 7 minute loom, really detailed step-by-step thing. And I already knew that you are a fatherpreneur, and I thought, how on earth did you find time just to shoot that video and send it to me that fast? I was super impressed. At some point, I thought, what kind of energy drink this guy is drinking to be that productive? But yeah, I love it.
I mean, the secret to it, Riley, besides experience, because it's just reps. Like, I've done 1,900 videos. So then if I'm making a one-on-one connection with someone over a loom, I could pick up my phone, share the essence of who I am quickly, capture the perceived essence of who they are, and then kind of speak to the gap or provide context. Like, anytime I'm answering someone's question, I'm also seeing, am I building likability, trust, value? I could nurture that in 15 seconds or 30 seconds in a way that a lot of people can't, because they haven't done that much content. You look at their channels, they've done 5 videos. They're still figuring out, how do I talk to this camera instead of how do I talk to the person? And a lot of them still don't fully know who they are, like the essence of who they are and how they communicate it. So you get good at it through reps, but the technical tricks that like anyone can do is, it's just creating a low friction recording environment and becoming more and more content with lack of perfection. Because the perfection comes with the reps and the experience, but you have to gain traction in these spaces. So like I could go from idea to a Loom video in under 1 minute and 30 seconds. I could do short form content with an edit in under 5 minutes for my current series that I'm doing. If I wanted to do like higher viral shorts, that's under 30 minutes. Those edits are more complex. If I want to do like a long form walkthrough, I could get that recorded and out in 30 minutes. If I'm doing a course, that's 5 hours because I have to plan it, have structure and flow. So you want to figure out how you scaffold your content and digital presence at different levels of value and the work required to do it. And then optimizing that, just, it's all practice. I could push a button. Like it's awesome.
Yeah,
That's all it
that's
takes.
really
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah, the reps, do the reps, and you'll get better with execution, which is again a perfect transition to my sort of last section. That is, I always ask my guests to give us 3 actionable tips, and not something theoretical like a lot of people do on social media. 3 actionable tips so that people can actually get better. So for you would be around content creation or maybe around your school. You already mentioned one with, if you want to get better at videos, do the reps, do 1900 videos. What could be the 2 other actionable tips that you could share with us, whether it's for school or for building your brand, building your business, building your community?
Yeah, I'll do one on the, because we talked about integrating fatherhood and entrepreneurship. So I'll do one there. And then I think I'll do one on overall like career and like shaping your life. So from like the fatherhood entrepreneurship one, and not everyone's a father, right? Not everyone even desires to have kids. There is often this tension you will feel at some point in your journey that you won't get to be enough in a work or an entrepreneurial context because kids are somehow a limiting factor, which I wholeheartedly reject. Because I've found that when I bring my child onto a call, like when I'm doing work alongside my kids, they're seeing me modeling how to provide value to the world through the works of my hands, my intellect, my passion. They're seeing how I connect with other people through a Zoom call. And at the same time, those people are seeing that I'm not ashamed of also being a father and an effective engineer, global leader. And it's something I actually got highlighted about it from Alex Gorski, who was the prior CEO of J&J. Like during peak COVID, when everyone went remote, there was so much insecurity. Like every call we had as a team online, because J&J went full remote, unless you're critical in the lab. So people are like building robots in their garages and stuff. Is epic. But like anytime there was a lawnmower going off or, construction noise or kids, people are like, I'm so sorry. Like they're always apologizing. And that just makes you feel small. So I wrote like a corporate blog just explaining like, hey, stop apologizing. I shared a case study of, I had a colleague who was doing a robotics controls discussion. His kid came out and without losing a beat, picked him up, set him on his knee, introduced him, and then just started talking about software. Like no hesitation, no wasted time on apology, just confidence. And Gorski did a company update where he wanted to highlight like 3 people that are really doing work remote well. And he read my blog to all 130,000 people of the company and saying like, Joe's absolutely right about this. Like we need to stop apologizing. We need to just be present and embrace that this is the season that we're trying to serve patients through and still be parents, because lots of people lost like kids going to school is a huge hit, right? So that's the parenting one. So like one thing you can do in there is to learn how to nurture a confidence to never apologize for having children in any situation, on a Zoom call, at the grocery store when there's a disturbance. Total mindset shift bars. Thanks, Nathan. Like to have a full confidence in that identity that you're a father, you're a mother, and that these kids are part of your life and you're bringing them up in the world and they're kids. Kids make noise. I got really good at hitting mute on my mic, covering my mouth, and yelling at my kids to get off the couch or whatever it was. Because like, I actually did it once during this podcast. If you rewind it, like
I didn't even notice.
Right? You don't even notice, because for me, like I do have to parent and I do have to be fully present here. And it's not going to be perfect conditions, just like it's never a perfect condition to start entrepreneurship. But for me, I don't want to feel like my children are ever a hindrance that keep me from progressing the business I desire to build, or if I move into this global leadership role I have an interview for, like that keep me from being able to progress MedTech at scale. So that's the first thing. That's the one thing you could do. Do you have any thoughts, Riley, before I do the second one? Yeah, the second one, you can get a piece of paper. So you could pause this if you watch in the future and get a piece of paper. I mean, you could just go to school and see this lesson, but I'm going to give you the first lesson for free in like 3 minutes. It's super easy. You're going to draw 4 circles that overlap like a Venn diagram, trying to draw it on the screen with my finger, right? So there's like a perfect little middle and then 4 different quadrants. And this is called ikigai. It comes from a Japanese context. It's a little bit appropriated in a Western context, but I'm going to bring it home to earth for you. And on each section, you'll have kind of 4 different labels, like what you're good at, what the world needs, what you love, and what you can get paid for. And if you can center these 4 things, ideally, some would say it's a more purposeful life. Now, I would argue going through hardship and pain builds resiliency, and there's a sense of purposeness and joy and suffering at times as well. So for chasing comfort, it doesn't always work great. But holistically, as you try to carve out your career or your dream job or what you want to build towards, it's a really helpful working framework. What I would have you do is draw those 4 circles, but do it 2 times on the same piece of paper, like one over here, one over here. And on the first one, I want you to map out your whole career with stars, circles, and squares. So when you were a design engineer, you were good at it, you were really passionate about it, like you loved it, but you didn't get paid well. And put that dot, and that was 6 years ago. And then when you moved into robotics controls engineers, you actually didn't feel very good at it, but you're doing it. The world needed it. You got paid a little better for it. And you don't know if you loved it, and put a dot over there. And I want you to track from past to today, which is called like retrospective sense making. And then what I want you to do on the other one is approach it in a more exploratory manner. So maybe put a dot of a role you can see within your organization that's in the same division or a different division. And how would that make you feel? Or look at external job postings on LinkedIn, or consider, what if I moonlit and built my own little business? What if I started a community on SKOOL around something I'm just passionate about, and how could that become centered? But then you could put those dots and see, do I actually need to take a shift towards that? Or do I stay the course where I'm at? Like, it's actually not that bad. That module is called The Grass Isn't Always Greener. Like, we like to think the grass isn't greener on the other side. Sometimes it is. Like, sometimes you have to get out of your like dry, barren desert and move into a new space. So that exercise should provide a lot of clarity on where you can go next. So that was 2. And the first one was just content creation.
Yeah,
Did I
do
hit
the
'em all?
reps. Do the reps and
Do the
get
reps.
comfortable
Yep.
with do the reps. Get comfortable by doing the reps. You'll progress and you'll find ways to optimize everything. We actually have one more
Oh,
question.
cool.
I want to make sure
Yeah.
we address it. Sorry. Yeah, this one.
Yes.
How do I talk to this camera versus how do I talk to this person?
Psychologically, it's really hard. I still struggle with it. During the beginning of this, when I had like moments of insecurity, because I can't see how many people are watching because I actually have a teleprompter. So I can talk more dead on to camera as opposed to like looking down at a laptop. But because that's smaller, so I can't see chat, I'm just trusting Riley to put things up that are helpful. So psychologically, it's difficult because you actually need reinforcement little by little that there are people that are receiving value from what you're making. And the hard part about social media is you should never go to social media looking for value or reinforcement on what you say or how you do it. I'm going to pick up baby. All right, here you go, bud. So for me, I learned actually the very first YouTube video I ever made. I had someone give me a comment of like, you need to look at the camera, like just very direct. On YouTube, you won't be successful if you don't look into the camera. And then I started watching a lot on a group. What's it called? It's like Video Basic or something. Video Studio. Shoot, I can't remember the channel. I'll post it later on this. But it was basically like how to shoot cinematically and learning how much intention goes into camera placement for actors and actresses in order to communicate a different sense of power, emotion, vulnerability, openness. So watching people is really good to figure out what are they looking at and how are they able to do that, which requires rehearsing. So if you're confident about what you'll say, then it's easier to continue to maintain engagement and eye contact. So if you watch my short form content, I can get away with a lot more on shorts because of how the platform works. So you'll see me like, if I'm thinking, I will look up and then lock back in and look up. And I do it in real human relationships as well. For some reason, I think better when I cannot see the camera for a second and then continue the conversation. So for my long form content, I script at least the first 2 to 3 minutes. I practice it 3 to 10 times, depending on how important it is. And then I run it with a projector so I can read the word like a prompter, so that I can stay on cadence, sound natural, keep eye contact. And then I improvise through bullets on the back end of the video. But without that hook retention, you lose people. So it's just based on kind of the format and the timing. That's one of the kind of key ways to maintain eye contact. But the reinforcement of like comments is really helpful. Like you'll see which videos do well, which videos don't do well, based on how often you look. And I mean, last lingering answer for Nathan, you have to watch yourself, which is so painful. Like for various reasons, we hate the way we talk, we hate the way we look, we hate the way we sound, our vocal, visual, image, like all that kind of stuff we struggle with. But the only way you get better is practicing. So when I did a TED Talk, I rehearsed 19 times. I filmed myself every time as well. But yeah, so practice, reinforcement, and listen to yourself. So every time I edit, I listen to myself. And that's just helped me be better. Like I can see what I'm saying, what I'm saying, and more. What are you exploring, Riley?
I'm just sharing with the viewers your school group, Lite one, so that they can have
Yeah,
a clear idea of what does it look like and where they need to click on the join group here.
yeah, it's fun. I'm
So that
getting
they can.
notifications that people are joining like on their own now, as opposed to
Ooh,
nurturing leads in. Yeah, yeah. So it's really
brilliant,
interesting.
brilliant.
Yeah,
I also,
it's the
yeah, go
start.
ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah,
That was all I had.
I also want to share your YouTube channel just in case people want to have a look at some of the some of the cool content you're putting out there. And I think we're reaching out the end of this session.
Yeah, of
So the
course.
last question I have for you is, I would like you to complete the following sentence: Life is too short.
Yes, I understand. I love this assignment. Life is too short to live somebody else's life. For so long in my career, and I'm sure for you as well, we are just crushed by comparison and believing we need to jump through certain hoops to progress down a certain track that has been prescribed to us. As a kid, I was a math and science kid, so engineering was the track prescribed to me. And I found a deep sense of fulfillment when I was doing marketing activities, interviewing surgeons in Japan. Like you have to learn how to live your own life. And when you find that fulfillment, it's going to give you more gusto, like more boldness to step out and take risks, because you're also proving to yourself that you can live your own life instead of somebody else's. That you can be on a podcast with an awesome French Canadian entrepreneur with your baby and talk about innovation and like do everything you want.
Yeah,
Like it's cool.
absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely. Uh, Joseph, thank you so much for this hour 15 with us live, with an extra guest on your side. That was brilliant. But again, that's a
Mhm.
perfect example of you can be a father and entrepreneur at the same time,
Yep.
and it's okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that story with us, that sharing your journey with us. And folks who are watching this right now, if you want to get in contact with Joe, check his SKOOL,
Mhm.
check his LinkedIn or his YouTube channel, The Pretentious Engineer. You'll find all the links attached to this event or this video.
Mhm.
This video is also available on Joe's YouTube channel, so you should be able to access that if you want. And send him a message if you're an engineer and you want a little bit of help or whatever. Whatever, just reach out to him. He's an amazing guy. I always introduce people that I met personally on platforms and in journeys, and definitely gotta Joe is definitely one of my 2025 best encounters. There's another one in the chat, but I'll try to get him on the podcast soon. But that being said, Joe, it was a pleasure to have you today. Thank you
Mhm.
so much.
Absolutely. And Riley, I'm excited to work with you at some point. Like at one of these points, there needs to be some kind of crossover, be it SKOOL or entrepreneurship. You're just doing too much cool stuff for me to stay in my own lane. So really appreciate the
Yeah,
opportunity to connect and chat. It's a lot of fun.
no problem. Whenever you want. Thank you so much. And to the audience,
Yeah.
remember one thing: life is too short to live someone else's life. Boom.
Awesome. keep changing the world.